What are your plans this Friday night? For many college students across Canada, their answers often involve a word synonymous with the college experience: alcohol. Interestingly, adolescents have an uncanny attraction towards alcohol, associating all types of alcoholic drinks with a good time. Thus, on far too many occasions, what starts out as a can of beer turns into a blackout. But as you were recovering from a massive hangover the next morning, have you wondered what binge drinking does to your brain? You probably haven't, but scientists have as they try to answer the question: what are the neurocognitive effects of binge drinking on adolescents? Binge drinking refers to the heavy consumption of alcohol in a short period of time. We will unpack the term neurocognitive and delve into specific effects in a moment, but just to give you some context, the broad array of scientific literature seems to point in a negative direction. Repeated heavy alcohol use has been associated with deficiencies in a variety of mental capacities, comparable to the effects of old age. Given that the brain continues to form and mature throughout adolescent years, it is not surprising that the excessive consumption of alcohol can lead to compromises in brain structure and functioning, especially for college students. Nevertheless, over the past 2 decades, binge drinking has risen significantly, almost to 40% in young adults. With alcohol deeply embedded in our culture, it is crucial to understand and discuss the potential risk of binge drinking so that we can be informed consumers. So, what are the neurocognitive effects of binge drinking? Let us first explore the meaning of neurocognitive effects. Neurocognitive effects have 2 dimensions. Neuro refers to the nervous system, and in our context, it is the physical impacts binge drinking has on the brain. Cognitive, or cognition, refers to the mental processes of knowing and understanding, and it relates to the effects binge drinking has on mental functioning. Thus, we will highlight these 2 interconnected elements as we suggest that binge drinking is linked with negative neurocognitive effects. To begin with, researchers have found an association between binge drinking and negative physical effects on the nervous system. We examined a study that compared a group of binge drinking adolescents and a group of non-binge drinking adolescents. Neuroimaging revealed that the binge drinking group exhibited widespread reductions in their brain's white matter integrity. Think of white matter as the transit system of the brain. It's important because it makes it easier to send information from one part of the brain to another, which helps us perform everyday tasks efficiently. The researchers discovered that the observed differences between the group's white matter integrity was statistically significant, which means the results are very unlikely to have occurred by chance alone. Although it may be tempting to conclude that binge drinking caused the deterioration of white matter, the design of the study only allows us to make a claim about their relationship. We can only say binge drinking adolescents are more likely to have reduced white matter integrity in their brains. Even though the researchers tried to make the 2 groups as similar as possible, they could not ethically manipulate binge drinking, so there could still be other unaccounted variables that could explain the relationship. Also, it is important to note that the groups consisted of a small number of participants who were mainly upper middle class Caucasian males, which limits the ability to generalize the results to a different population. Nevertheless, the researchers measured binge drinking and white matter integrity with reliable, established tests, allowing for an important finding that reveals an association between actual physical brain deficiencies and binge drinking. Along with the physical impacts, binge drinking is also associated with decreased mental performance. In another study, researchers explored how binge drinking adolescents compared to non-binge drinking adolescents in executive functioning tasks. Executive functioning simply refers to mental processes and skills, such as memory. The researchers took a large sample of adolescents and assigned them into 3 groups according to age. Within each group, students were categorized as binge drinking subjects or non-drinkers. Through various established measures such as the Stroop color word task, the researchers found that both binge drinkers and non-drinkers' executive performance improved with age, but the binge drinkers didn't improve as much, exhibiting worse scores. Unlike the previous study, we cannot claim that binge drinking causes worse executive functioning, but can only conclude that there is a relationship between the 2. Also, these findings cannot be generalized to countries outside of Spain where the study took place, because of differences in the definitions of alcohol use. The researchers did take steps, however, to ensure that this relationship didn't arise because of another factor. For example, they accounted for the differences in tobacco and cannabis consumption, which could have played a role in the results. The researchers also found that their results were statistically significant and had a moderate effect size, which means that the size of the differences was notable. Thus, this study contributes to our understanding of the association between executive functioning and binge drinking and laid the foundation for future research. Speaking of which, a later study then examined the cognitive performance of adolescent binge drinkers. The researchers used established measures that tested various parts of cognitive performance, including executive functioning, learning and memory, and language and achievement. A sample of 65 adolescents was split into two groups, binge drinkers and non-drinkers, who took the test at 2-week intervals over 4 weeks. The researchers found that binge drinkers differed from non-drinkers across several cognitive domains, even after 4 weeks of abstinence, a result which was statistically significant. Unlike the previous studies, we cannot draw cause and effect conclusions because of the inability to manipulate alcohol use. The study, however, did a good job of minimizing the chance that the results were due to something other than binge drinking. The researchers screened the participants so that they were similar. The problem with this, however, is that they can only externalize to adolescents who are in that particular socio-demographic grouping. Still, the study contributes to the growing body of evidence for the relationship between binge drinking and negative neurocognitive effects. To recap, multiple studies have shown a strong relationship between binge drinking and negative neurocognitive effects. Specifically, binge drinking has been associated with white matter integrity reduction and diminished cognitive performance. The inability to ethically manipulate alcohol use means that researchers may never be able to prove a cause and effect relationship between the two in an experimental setting. Even so, researchers have intentionally sought to minimize other possible explanations, and the evidence across multiple studies combine to provide compelling implications about binge drinking's neurocognitive effects.